Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the Carnival Row series finale. Great series finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So picking up in the aftermath of last episode, we had everything with the Black Ravens gathering up after, we see a crowd of people at the front of the row, and it's like, right, we were inciting all of this for what purpose? Turns out Lenora wanted to make this kind of like I don't know what the proper shooting fish in a barrel type of situation. Basically wants to funnel them into a very specific spot into the row, which meant and ultimately ended up being the mass destruction that ended up being where they ended up busting through. They're ripping people apart, killing people. Like we see them like slicing off a Pix's wings. And so, but it's like, right, necessary sacrifices, because once we lure them in deep enough, then we obliterate all of them. I mean, granted, Lenora knows that this is a two-pronged attack. We're going to kill all these people here, and then the plan is to have Veer there at the meeting, the quote-unquote meeting that they're supposed to be having between, like, the Pack, New Dawn, and Parliament from the Burg, but it's supposed to be like the Sparrows is going to go in there and rip everyone's, not even just rip everyone's throat, like, just kill everyone straight up. That's the plan. And that makes their usurping everything that much easier once, like, all the heads of the government are going now. It's like, right, we fill in the blood and we kind of start running this. Because also at that moment, you'll end up taking out at least an ambassador from the Pact. Who knows how much of the Pact hierarchy is still left? Probably a good chunk, but they are not the powerhouse that they once were, son. And if they try to stop, like, the now New Dawn, which is taking over the Burg, then it's like, whereas like New Dawn will have bolstered its forces even more, whereas like the Pack is once again limping at this point in time. At the same time, Philo now figures out what their plan was about Parliament, and he wants to go deal with the Sparrows because the plan is, he's got to go save Parliament. But, Darius is like, what about Tourmaline? You're the one that asked her to put herself in danger by drawing the Sparrows here. And because of that, she's put herself in danger because she cares too much about people. She's not just going to let people suffer because of that. So, but yeah, it's like, what do you want me to do? Darius went back to Tourmaline, but she's not going to let him stay. She does what she does because it's the thing about when you care about someone. She's like, right, you don't think there's something ever going to happen between you and me, but Darius is like, I get it. It's you and Vignette, but he's like, I'm still going to stay here, but she pushes him away, but he made sure never to be too far away from her, I'm sure. But the fact is, she pushed him away. She says, like, right, I don't need you. I don't need a monster around. There's also the truth of, like, I don't know if I can guarantee if I can control myself. I mean, we saw last episode, I didn't really talk about it, that she could revert him back to being a human. But like, he's like, yeah, you could do that again. But she's like, I don't want to have to battle the two monsters. And he's like, that's how you see me? She's saying every terrible thing she can to get him away because she doesn't want him to die. It's like, if this is what's going to happen to me, this is my fate, this is my destiny, then I will embrace it. But it doesn't mean she's not not scared because you see her hands trembling. So sadly, on his way to kind of deal with all this, Philo is attacked by Thatch and his group. He's rounded up, I mean, obviously last episode just turned him even more into a dick. He was already kind of a rabble-rouser. Just kind of, he leaned into his hate. It was always there, but he definitely leans into it even more. And the fact is that he found other people who were just as angry and hateful too. So he's rallying the group. They try and hang Philo. Luckily, I think the cops roll through enough in time and end up saving Philo, because it's like, yeah, the cops killing people is in this world is kind of one thing, but it's like you just doing your own thing. We're not down for that, especially because Dumby's kind of given Philo license to kind of do what he needs to. So I think the other cops know that's the case as well. So what's interesting too is that Imogen ended up figuring out about the Veer situation because she kept seeing Castor look at it. Yeah, it's like, yeah, it took me the final 2 episodes to finally remember Home Dude's name because I remembered it last episode and now I have it in memory. It just took me to the final episodes to get it. But yeah, Castor kept giving Veer looks because Veer's like, oh yeah, like, we want to be nearby, ambassador, talking to the Pact ambassador. We should be nearby that anytime the New Dawn speaks its lies, we'll be able to counter those points when it's our time to speak. Obviously he wants to be close by so he can slaughter everyone. Because it's like, yeah, you don't want to take the chance you slaughter some people, but some people get away, you know, so you want to make sure it's a little easier on you to be able to take everybody all out at once, so. But Imogen figured it out, and she ends up getting word to Millworthy, which Millworthy talks to Veer, and Veer's like, right, I know who you are. You are a decent human being, Millworthy. So, yes, I'm going to tell you, I am, you know, it's like, I am going to try and aim for peace talks. And Millworthy's like, they will execute for that. He's like, then I will die with my principles. It's like, I was like, we know you're you're full of shit. We know you want to kill everyone. But, you know, I'm wondering if given the opportunity, would Veer, the Sparrows have killed, I wonder, was there ever a Major Veer? Or I'm assuming maybe there was a Major Veer and it just, because I can only assume they choose human forms that are based on people they've seen. So like, Disparis most likely killed the real Major Veer and has been implanted the entire time. Like I said, brought up last episode, I can only assume that's why the New Dawn always had an upper hand, because Disparis was there like to be their secret killer, but also that it was there to undermine the entire Pax, you know, power from the inside. So I'm sure that helped tremendously in that regard as well. But yeah, because Millworthy like thought like, oh, well, I guess I have a semi-ally in this, because him and Veer had like this, you know, it's like, right, because once again, Veer's like, yeah, I know that you are someone who has always been pro-Fae. And he's like, well, because he tried to hide it so well, but Veer always saw it in him, because it's like, right, Veer was a Fae as well. So and once again, I circle back to believing that's why Millworthy was the only one that wasn't killed. Well, that them and Vignette were the only one. Him and Vignette were the only ones that weren't killed by the Sparrows. I mean, it wasn't going to kill a Fae unless it needed to. But also, it liked Millworthy because it knew who he was, that he could be an ally when it comes to New Dawn, because he shares a lot of those same principles. So Philo makes his way to Parliament, and he ends up telling Millworthy about Veer, and it's like, right, don't look at him. It's like, what do we do? It's like, I don't know, you're in a complicated situation. And in that moment, Veer ended up killing the ambassador, and it's pretty dope seeing the transformation, because we've only seen it once in reverse. Well, like in the sense of like we saw the Sparrows turning to a human, like in, what was that, episode 6 we saw that? I can't remember. Was it the 6? Yeah, the original Sin episode where we saw Philo's past with the military. So we saw the Sparrows turn into a human, but we never saw the inverse of Sparrows turning back into its form. So that was pretty dope. And the ambassador got it pretty hard, and the thing went through slaughtering a few people. But luckily, like, Philo kept, that was actually pretty badass when he was just like, bar the doors, and the Sparrows was coming. He tackled it. And he wouldn't have survived that situation if Tourmaline hadn't done what she did using her Herexpix powers to kind of telekinetically like toss this thing aside, but it could sense her. Because that's what I was drawing from that last episode when it turned and looked at its own reflection. Because I think it kind of, the saying I used was, right, you stare into the abyss, it stares back. I think Veer stirred back at her, knowing like, oh, there you are, but I have a more important mission. I'll get to you later. There's nothing you can do about it. But now it's like, no, you're interfering. And it might even be just like her powers are just naturally being like, no, come to me, and it can't really control itself. Didn't really go, I mean, it didn't fully go the way Leonora wanted it to in that extent. Obviously, Thatch and his people burst through because Dombey let them go through. I don't know if he knew it was going to come down to that, but he knew, like, if he didn't, that would have been a whole other issue. So, and it's kind of like, right, if you do this, there will be a reckoning. And that's just like, this is the reckoning. I was like, oh, go ahead. I'm like, well, at first I was like, as long as it's not the cops, I feel like if it was cops, if it was Dombey and his people, then it would have been a bigger issue, them getting like shot down and killed. But since this is like a radical group led by Thatch, then it might not be as, that's why I feel like Dombey didn't immediately go in the moment the shooting started, because it's like, yeah, he kind of got what he deserved. It's like, you know, because even, that's the thing, like, Dombey is a prick all the way through. But at the very least, he is a prick that has some inklings of changing of one, because even he's been like, yeah, I'm a prick, I'm a dick, I'm a racist, but, you know, even I can recognize like, yo, I don't want the road to burn. Like, it's because it's like, for him, it's like, yeah, there's this hierarchy we have of like humans being above the critch, they are below us and stuff, but still, like, he doesn't want like the mass genocide of them and everything. Maybe it's just because of Philo ended up changing his mind, because it's like, oh, this half. I mean, he always had beef with Philo, but especially when he found out Philo was a liar, and also about the whole being half faith thing. So I think that's been a big part of slowly changing his mind over the course of the series. So, I mean, over the course of the season. So, once again, it still doesn't take away from the fact that he is a major prick. But yeah, Thatch and them did their damage, but Leonora and them were ready. But she also wanted to wait until more people were nearby, so she ended up waiting, letting him cause a little more damage. It wasn't until well, because Vignette saw the Sparrows and knew it was going after Tourmaline, so she had to go. But Kane was like, no, don't abandon us again. I mean, because Leonora was like, right, this is all going to, like, depend on you if you can draw them in. I mean, you drew them in enough, but they were supposed to draw them in further and make sure there was more, so you're supposed to draw their attention more. But and Leonora actually did take a shot at Vignette later on, because it's like, all right, I should have known, like, right, this is how it is. If you stand in the way of our progress and stand in the way of our mission, regardless if you did your part to some extent, you're bailing now. I got to take you out. But it's like, nah, the moment the shooting starts, Thatch ends up hiding, so that's why that bastard's still alive. Not all of them got killed. We do see by the end that some did survive of Thatch's, like, crew. But after everything, everyone raced back to Tourmaline. Luckily, when the time came, because I was like, right, we never saw her actually die in her vision. You only got a fraction of it. Because things also didn't play out exactly the same. Because if you remember in the... because in the scene, Philo was like shooting up. So I think fate did change. I think that's supposed to imply like things, because she also didn't see Vignette nor Darius during that. So it must mean that things did change and didn't play out exactly the same. So maybe she originally did die, but she had people who cared enough about her to come back to protect her and to put an end to this. So Darius got in his first blows, got thrown off, and Tourmaline was able to hold off long enough until Vignette came. I didn't even notice, but later on, like, her eye is healed. I was wondering if she's going to have, like, a permanent scar from that or something. Because I wondered for, like if she had a, Kakashi thing kind of going on. Obviously, Kakashi, if you know Naruto, Kakashi's got the scar and, like, his eye. I mean, obviously, he has, like, spoilers, Obito's shotgun gun and everything. But that's what I was wondering, like, if she'd have a permanently damaged eye or something. But we do see later on, it doesn't seem like that's the case. I guess I could have also, MCU-wise, I could have referenced Thor, because his eye was damaged for a while, but that's no longer a thing. Either way, tangents and all that aside, but then your boy Philo comes in. I thought that was pretty badass, like, shooting the Sparrows. It's wrapping its arms around him, and he's shooting through it. I was like, come on, and he gets a headshot off. I'm like, yeah! I thought he was going to be a little more mangled than he was, but luckily he was okay. Sadly, Darius died from his wounds. It got him pretty good. It sunk its teeth into him, and he died. It was like, but for him, it's like, I died protecting Tourmaline. Like, my life was worth it. I mean, he had a complicated circumstance anyway, and it's sad that it came down to this. And it's like, he's telling Philo, like, you did it. He's like, no, we did it. We are soldiers of the Berg, and, he dies, and it sucks that it came down to that. And the ending surprised me in the regards of, I'm surprised Philo and Vignette didn't end up together. That was surprising. I would have figured that would have been the end result, but it's like, no. Like, Vignette's like, what did I do? Like, I chose this fight, but then, like, I'm here. I kind of screwed everything up, and it's like, well, you followed your heart. She's like, I've always loved her, and Philo's like, I know. And I will always love you. And they hug each other. And she's like, just please don't die, essentially for this place. So it's kind of like, yeah, get Tourmaline out of here. You guys get out of here. There's the Tiernonox situation, which I'm assuming that's where they're at the end. But either way, when it's all said and done, Philo dragged the Sparrows out. And he was like, it's done. Parliament is safe. Your big killer is dead, So Dombey and the police are making their way through after everything, and Leonora the Black Raven that was with her, that was with Kane and Vignette, which Kane is now dead. She was about to shoot Philo, but Leonora was like, no, don't. Let's hide and fight for another day. So they were going to blend into the crowd and disappear. At the same time, this had all happened. Like, I hadn't talked about the fact is your boy Agreus got away, and I was like stepping on that one dude's leg, and then that was it Boz's person? He literally bent that person in half over the bar. I was like, Jesus Christ. He's been through all that he's been through. He's a survivor, so, I mean, the fact is, he was able to free himself of, like, the severed part of his horn, a piece of it. He used that to cut himself down with the rope, so. But Leonora, I was like, right, she's just going to blend it in the crowd, but I was like, nah, Grace is going to catch up to her. He does. He puts the Black Raven woman down, and it comes down to Leonora. It's like, yeah, it's over, you lost. But for her, it's like, no. The seeds I've sown, the seeds, I planted them, they've been sown, so even if I'm stopped, the revolution will live on, because her people blended into the crowd, and so, that's in a lot of people's hearts, especially after everything that went down. That's just going to lead to more fervor on their part. But so for her, it's like, even if I die, what I've created will last beyond me. That's the point for this. This is bigger than me. Something we also, once again, a point that was brought up, but we never got a conclusion to. Now I also wonder, was it complete and utter BS, or maybe it was true? Who was her human lover? Was it Castor? They never explained, like she said, once again, that was the whole point of her connecting with Imogen, was like, right, you have a puck lover, I have a human lover, and it's like, we never found out who it was, and maybe at the end of the day, it wasn't important. You'd assume it would be. That's why I'm like, Castor's always there, so I kept being like, is it him, potentially? But they never had any moments, but I guess it's like, maybe the battle was too important, I don't know. We never found out what happened to Castor, but I'm assuming he got arrested when all the Parliament stuff was going down, so I can only assume he's rotting away in the jail and stuff. I was kind of hoping, just because of everything, that Imogen would have had an opportunity to kill him or something like that, but, rotting away in a prison cell, I guess it's the next best thing, I guess. But either way, Leonora, Agreus doesn't even kill her, she kills herself, just being like, right, I won't be captured alive, but it doesn't matter. What I've sparked in people will never go away. Like, this is, the revolution will live on. It might take a break, but that spark, those seeds are there, and they've already started to grow. And with it all said and done, Philo's just looking around after it's all said and done, and Thatch comes out and shoots him. But then your boy Dombey comes out and shoots him. I was like, yo, the fact that you had Philo's back like that. To be fair, you were trusted in Philo this entire time. You had some bumps along the way this season, but still. And it's like, wow, so how is this going to end? We skip to some months later. Obviously, we see Millworthy back to telling his story, because it's like, yeah, I'm done with that government stuff. I don't need to be in that position anymore. I was only in that position temporarily, just till the whole new chancellor situation was figured out. And it seems like he got his kobolds back. It took a while, but he was able to finally get them back. So that's pretty dope. I know that had to be a whole rigmarole to get them back. But yeah, and he's putting on a show, and he's telling this heartfelt story of just kind of like, what makes us us. Is it, we're all kind of basically on the back of the martyr's hands and the knife, but it's like, it's not the soil or whatever it is that, is it the soil or the, this and that makes us all up, because we all laugh, we all love, we all strive. But he was saying that basically, we all had the ability to determine our own lives, that, and those lines, like, we carry the ability to define our own life through our own line. And then the kobolds fart, and he's like, you kind of undermined it, this whole 2-hour, like, performance and build up in this story. And then we catch up with Philo, which is like, okay, so he's walking amongst the Parliament as their potential new chancellor. And he gives this beautiful speech about humans have a hard time changing. He's like, I've witnessed and know that the Fae are capable of change. They've shown that. And he's like, and he talks about a situation where it's like, you look at me, you see a human, you can ignore the parts of me you hate, because I'm a representation of everything that is human. Despite being half Fae, I no longer have my wings, because you can't see it, but I have these scars on my back on where my wings were taken from me. The fact is, I grew up in a burghish school. I worked as a soldier in the burghish army, and I also was a police for the burg. So I grew up in this system, the system of systematic hate and racism towards the Fae that I was a part of, that I didn't do my part in helping the Fae as much as I wanted to try and pretend I was. He's like, if I had decided to change sooner, like the Fae that I am, then maybe I could have kept the woman I loved, as well as I could have done so much good from the beginning. But once again, it was about hiding who he was and leaning into the human of it all. It's like that survival for him ended up costing so much. But for him, it's like, if I'm here as the chancellor because I'm Breakspeare's, like, you know, some of you would have never accepted me, you know, even though I have like birthrights to like the chancellorship, because you want me here because I'm your excuse not to change, because you're like, well, we have a Fae, you know, someone who's part Fae, but he's like, no, that's not good enough. The people who should be making these decisions, there should be a chancellor who's a Puck, who should be a Pix or whatever. Like, they should have a horn, they should have wings, because you guys are all humans making these decisions for the Fae. It should be an even split of humans and Fae in conjunction working together in Parliament, but they won't agree with that. And for him, it's like, I won't be your excuse not to change. I won't let you use me as your proxy. Be like, yeah, we have a Fae, part Fae chancellor, so we don't have to change. We can do whatever we need to. And he's like, I know you're just going to use me as an excuse to stay in your hateful ways, so I'm going to force you to change. So he walks away from Parliament. So it's probably going to just end up being another human chancellor, but it is still the thing of he has right by, and now part of me, because he mentioned horns at first, I was like, are you going to set up Agreus to be that? But I'm like, I don't know if Agreus really even wants that. So, but for Philo, he walks away. Then we catch up with Imogen and Agreus, and his horn has been repaired, and you see like kind of like this amber that was used to kind of put his horn back together. And for her, it's like the flaws are shown, like flaws and all are shown, and it's beautiful, you know? And so they basically have reached out a venture between obviously Spurnrose and God, what was his last name? It's like Australian or something like that. And they're bringing kind of like electricity to the world as showcasing it. I even like the little detail of the Puck that's like turning the wheel. I'm pretty sure that's the kid he met in a row last episode that he gave money to when he was looking for where Leonora and them were at, or at least the meeting with, you know, what ended up being Vignette. But yeah. And them being just obvious, because we have no idea, like all they say is many, many moons, so we don't know if it could be, obviously it could be years later, months later, you know, they keep that vague enough. But no one looks like extremely older, so you can only assume like, but even then it could be like, you know, let's keep it vague, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, they're out in the open, they're able to fully be themselves, bringing electricity, and everyone's even clapping, and there's that friend of course. I don't know if that's Louisa, whatever, her friend, or whether that was someone else, but she's kind of reluctant in clapping, but the guy next to her like kind of shoves, I don't know if that was like her, someone she's related to or someone that knows her, but almost like stop being so stubborn, and she's kind of claps for them as well. So that was kind of beautiful. And we also catch up with Vignette and Tourmaline. Like I said, they are together, they are bound together, and like I said, I'm assuming that is Tierna, but I'm so curious what that means for her horoscope's powers. Like, are they still there? Most likely. Like, it is a thing of they don't have to be evil. They could be used for good. Does she have a reason to use them? Who knows? Maybe there'll be points later on when she can use them to help people so they're not as evil. Or maybe the Mimo was able to help her. You know, she was able to kind of go through with it now to get rid of them permanently. I don't know. It feels like it's something that's going to be stuck with her for the rest of her life, but who knows? But when it's all said and done, them kind of getting wed, you know, and it's like, right, you're happy for them, but it's also kind of sad because you're like, right. I mean, because it is that thing of like, right, there's love all around because the Pix are capable of like loving more than one person. It's like, right, she'll always love Philo just like Philo will always love her, but she's with Tourmaline, you know? So, I mean, I guess it also makes sense in the end. I mean, it also, you know, it comes down to her choice. This is what she wanted and it's what Tourmaline wanted. And Philo understood that. It's like, I will always love you regardless of it all. So, this is where we find ourselves, and sadly the circumstances being what they are will never change, will never end. But when it's all said and done, Philo's walking amongst the row, and we see how much it's changed and how peaceful it is. And he runs into Millworthy. Well, he also runs into Dombey, who's now an inspector. And it's like, oh, why didn't you tell me you were Breakspear's son? He's like, oh, would that have made you treat me different? He's like, yeah, to your face. He's like, oh, yeah, you are. You're still a prick, but he is going to become a better. I think, slowly but surely, the fact that he's there in the row as an inspector, I think he will eventually, change is possible. It's a slow thing. It is a very slow thing, and I think for Leonora, she believed in rushing it. Progress is a slow thing. It should, we would all want it to be faster than what it is, and, but it is a slow process, sadly. You can't rewrite years, decades of hate that have been ingrained in people and institutions just overnight, but it is something that can be chipped away at slowly but surely. Yes, we'd want it to kind of be, but you hammer like that too quickly, you come at it like a hammer like Leonora. I mean, who knows? Maybe you can make the argument because Leonora went down like the hammer that she did, it allowed this other side of things to kind of flourish in the long run, to kind of counter what she was doing, or shutting it down allowed for that. It's a hard. I feel like it's really hard to say which way, which full effect it had. I'm not explaining myself well. What I mean is, this is all in response to Leonora's plan. Now, whether it's just because her plan was so extreme that it led to this, or is it just that in response to that plan, we will counter it with either way. Like I said, I'm sure I'm not explaining myself or articulating myself that well in explaining that. But yeah, Millworthy was like, oh yeah, I'm sure you would have been a great chancellor, but for Philo, it's kind of like, nah, I don't think I would have. Things need to change, and me being in that position would have just kept things the same. And Millworthy's like, yeah, but he's also like, your mom would be proud of what you've done. And then Philo's like, you loved her, didn't you? And it's like, yeah, did she love you back? And he kind of doesn't say anything, but I think and then he's like, I think she'd be proud of you too from what you've done, all that he's tried to do for the Fae as well. Kind of, with Parliament, his hands were kind of tied. I mean, that's why he was trying so hard with Jonah to try and change Jonah, but Jonah had his thing and the whole Sophie thing. That's kind of where things stand. And Millworthy even asked Philo, what's the next step for you? And he's like, I don't know, but we'll just have to wait and see what the next chapter has more. Now, I'm so curious what that would, because for him, it's does that mean going back to the police, or what was he going to do? So, since he's not going to be chancellor, since he's not really down the politics route, or he's going to go back to police, or, who knows what that next chapter of Philo's life would have been like. If we had gotten to season 3, that would have been interesting to see. Like I said, because even they admit, this peace isn't going to last forever, but change is slow, and, it's peaceful now, but whatever comes next, we'll face it, Once again, just because what Leonora sowed in people isn't completely going, even with all this peace, who's to say there weren't some spark-ups in the time we hadn't seen, That's why I'm so curious, if this wasn't the final season, where, how much of this, that was my biggest question going into it, how much was, I've had those questions the past couple episodes, how much was change and how much stayed exactly the same and how much was just slightly modified, or was it completely scrapped? That stuff like that is what I'm curious about. So that's something I'm going to read into later, but I think it was a beautiful way to wrap up. That's also the thing too, we get a small story in this world. There's so many other spots. Once again, there's so many other places in this world. I mean, but it makes sense because the show is called Carnival Row, so it is about this story. So this story ending, it kind of told the story it needed to tell here. Yes, there's other stories that could be told in this world, because there's so many other places out there, and Agreya says, hey, this is despite what the Berg has, it is still better than anywhere else. Once again, the remnants of the pack, are they completely subdued with everything that's going on? Once again, this is the story of the Berg, essentially, and, I don't know. There is so much still life in this world that you could breathe into, and maybe someone later on down the road, if given the opportunity, could circle back to this universe. But for now, this story here in the Berg is done for now. But even then, that story is going to continue down the road, and who knows what the future holds for all of these characters we followed. You know, those are still around. Obviously, bodies are dropping left and right this season. So, obviously, we didn't have that much. Like, death was kind of like here and there. And the first one, like, obviously, they went balls to the wall in this one because there was a lot. Sparrows killed a lot of people this season. So, yeah. Once again, I was not expecting the Jonah and Sophie thing to turn into what it did, but it did, so. But once again, to everyone involved with this show, like I do with every series finale, I wish everyone involved, cast and crew, well, first and foremost, thank you for bringing an amazing story, I think very poignant story, very reflective of our world, obviously without the more mystical side of things, but obviously it's meant to be an allegory and reflection of our own worlds, and they're not trying to hide the allegory either. It's meant to be a blatant allegory of like, yes, you can directly correlate it to our world, and everything. So, but I think it told a very beautiful and powerful, dark fantasy Victorian era type of story, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm kind of sad, like, you know, I was kind of excited with the season, but it's also like, man, I wish there was more stories. Like, I want more, like a season 2 or season 3, a season 4, you know. And, you know, that could allow you to, like, expand upon the world even more. But once again, like I said earlier, the story has been told that they were able to tell. And I think they were able to end it beautifully. Like I said, there's still so much to tell, but the story ends here. But, you know, every ending is a new beginning. So, but regardless of it all, once again, to everyone involved in the show, cast and crew, thank you for bringing such an amazing show to me and so many others. And I wish everyone involved in this series the best in their future endeavors. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.